Shalom, everyone. This is Shamir and Shabbat Shalom. So we're starting again with our parashat reading from the beginning, starting with Bereshit. So today we're just going to look at the first verse of Bereshit, some of the grammar and what is being said, even though this sentence seems relatively simple. It actually has a lot of complexities, which a lot we can't get into because it would be too lengthy, but I'll try to give you an overview of what I can with the time that we have together, and so that the video would be at a reasonable length so that you can enjoy uh, going through it. So first, there are other flood or creation stories um, from pagan traditions. So we have a scholar, his name is Hassel, and he points out 5 differences from Genesis 1 um, from these pagan traditions that had to take a little look at something really quick. Okay, so Hessel detects 5 areas in which Genesis 1 appears to be attacking rival cosmologies, or cosmology meaning origin stories of the universe. First, in some Near Eastern cosmogonies, dragons are rivals whom the Canaanite gods conquer, whereas in Genesis 1:21, the great sea monsters are just one kind of the aquatic animals created by God. Second, these cosmogonies describe the struggle of the gods to separate the upper waters from the lower waters. But Genesis 1:6-10 describes the acts of separation by simple divine fiat. Third, the worship of the sun, moon, and stars was current throughout the ancient Orient. Genesis pointedly avoids using the normal Hebrew words for sun and moon, lest they be taken as divine, and says instead God created the greater and the lesser light. Fourth, Babylonian tradition sees the creation of man as an afterthought, a device to relieve the gods of work and provide them with food. This is what happened with the flood story, actually. I think it's Gilgamesh, where the gods flooded the earth and killed all the humans, and then they were starving because they didn't have any humans to prepare them food. Finally, Genesis shows God creating simply through his spoken word, not through magical utterance as attested in Egypt. There thus runs through the whole Genesis cosmology a conscious and deliberate anti-mythical polemic, so against magic. Um, the author of Genesis 1 therefore shows that he was aware of the cosmologies and that these cosmologies or other cosmologies, meaning creation, stories, or episodes, and that he wrote not in dependence on them so much as in deliberate rejection of them. That's for all of those who suggest that uh, or this or that, or what about this story and what about that story? Uh, but the God of Israel isn't dependent on uh, pagan cosmologies to express his creation. There is a lot of discussion, like I said, even though verse 1 seems simple, it's actually a unit, verse 1-3, and then there's a whole discussion about how to look at the clause and so on and so forth. We're not going to get into that either. Let's see. All right, so let's look at our verse first here. I'm going to read it and then look at some of the grammar and then look at a little bit of the commentary concerning this. So Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim ve'et haaretz. Okay, first, I know there's a whole following with this object marker et. There are really two versions of this. So et here is just an object marker. It's just telling you what words the verb bara is modifying. So it's a marker to mark Hashemayim, the heavens, the et haaretz, and the earth. And then there's another preposition that looks exactly the same, et, or with a segol, and et with a sere, which is a long e. So, and this one means with. It often gets confused with et, the object marker, too, since they both look the same, except when et is inflected like ito. So that would be with him. This little holem vav on the end is we call it third masculine singular suffix. So third person is she or he. She, he, or it. In this case, it would be he, though. That's third person. Second person is you, and first person is I or we. All right. So our first word, bereshit, begins with the preposition be. So that's can be in or on. It can have different meanings depending on how it's being used in a sentence. So the basic meaning would be in or on, but everything in context. And then reshit is the basis of two words, rosh, which can be head, top, or chief, like your head, literal head, the top of something like rosh hahar, so the top of a mountain, or it can be a leader. And rishon, which is first, which means first. Okay, so bereshit. And then bara this is the lexical form of the word. This is a cow verb, a cow perfect verb because it's past tense, although sometimes that gets overridden. Again, everything in context. So cow perfect, third masculine singular. So it's third person, it's a masculine and singular. Create from some unknown substance, because we're not told what God creates out of. Elohim is a general term for God or any God, really. It's not a personal name, although it has been turned into that when you read the English. And then bara means created. Et hashemayim, so then we have the object of bara. One object is hashemayim. So this word, a lot of people, students, and have a difficult time with this, and you say shemayim, but that is incorrect. It looks that way because you have that patak vowel under the mem and then the yim. This is actually a diphthong, So the patach and the U together creates a diphthong. So this is technically a dual in dual form. Dual means two of something, a shemayim. So we have to be shemayim is the lexical form, shemayim. And then we have this little dot. Well, we have the definite article. So Hebrew definite article is not the same. Actually, you see it in this verse. How it's pointed depends on the word and what consonants are being used. Some definite article, the diagnostics of a definite article is a hey, patach, and a dagesh forte. Where we have two different kind of dagesh, forte and aline. So in Bereshit and bara, we see a little dot there. So that's those are both dagesh line. So the dagesh line only appears in 6 consonants out of the Hebrew alphabet. So we call it Beget Kefet, Bet Gimel Dalet, Kaf, Pei, and Tav. I'm only telling you this because there's dots everywhere, and so I just want you to know which ones are which. So back to Shemayim. So Shemayim is not part of these Bet Gimel Dalet, Kaf, Pei, Tav. The Sheen, so it has a Dagesh Forte. That's something what we call like doubling the consonants. So technically there's 2 sheens. Sometimes that's a difficult thing with students, so they tend to overpronounce because they think you have to say hashamayim, but it's hashamayim. You kind of like it kind of lengthens the sound hashamayim, but not hashamayim because this doesn't sound good. Okay, so diagnostics of our definite article, hey, patah, and adagish forte, though that changes when we get to a word that has a guttural. Right. So again, we have Bereshit, bara, Elohim. So in the beginning, and it should be noted that Bereshit is not definite because we don't see this hey in front of Bereshit. So it's not marked with a definite article, but it still has a definite translation in the beginning. All right. So et, again, our object marker, right? It tells us the objects of the verb bara. So one of those objects, hashemayim, the heavens. And I got a room to write, so the heavens. The et, so we just have a simple vav and so it has, I mean, a vav was a simple shava. Those 2 little dots called a shava. And then the object marker, the et haaretz. So haaretz also has a definite article, but you notice it looks different than hashemayim, right? Because aleph is a guttural. So we have gutturals, right? Aleph, hey, chet, ayin, and resh. So 5 gutturals. Sometimes resh, like sometimes Y in English. So sometimes resh is a guttural and sometimes it does other things. But Aleph, Hey, Chet, and Ayin for sure. 5 gutturals. called a guttural because guttural neat. It's like from the throat. So you make the sound. We don't really do it for ayin. It's lost on us, but chet. Okay, so ha'aretz, so it looks different, right? Eretz is the lexical form. And when I say lexical form, it means the form that you will find in the lexicon. So earth, land, or ground. But here we don't see a dagesh forte. And we notice that the sigol has now become a kamatz, right? Kamatz is a long A class vowel, long A vowel. And then we also have a kamatz instead of the patach. This is a patach. It's a short A. So, okay, so kamatz is a long A. And then we see that there's another kamatz under this hey. There's a fancy word to use because that when we call it in fancy terms is that the aleph rejects the dagesh forte of the definite article. And so we have another long word, compensatory lengthening. Which simply means that because the aleph isn't taking the dagesh forte, the patach lengthens to a kamatz. So that short A class vowel that is under the hey in Hashemayim becomes a kamatz. Tak short A. I think it's the other way, right? Becomes kamatz. Long A. This might not, all this grammar might not be interesting to some. Maybe it will, maybe, just pick up what you can. But anyway, all right, so again, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim. So in the beginning, God created the heavens, hashamayim, ve'et haaretz, and the earth. So then we're going to look at a couple of caveats with Bereshit and bara. So you notice that both words actually contain the same consonants. Bereshit, bet resh aleph, and then the word bara, bet resh aleph. And then also the name Avraham has the consonants inverted. Avraham. Aleph, bet resh. So the consensus and understanding is that the world was created in order that Israel could be brought into the world. And so we can connect the name Avraham to the beginning with these consonants. Okay. So some of the stuff we've already discussed. So elsewhere in the opening chapters of Genesis, we always see the word bara in close proximity to the word barak. Bara, to create, and barak, to bless. And again, that kind of brings us right back around to Israel, right? Suggestion that creation and blessing are linked in the divine purpose, a purpose eventually to be realized through Abraham. And again, as we said, whose name consists of the same three letters plus the hey mem at the end. Um, so first, it should be noted also that God, the God of Israel, is always the subject of bara. Creation is never predicated of pagan deities. And second, the text never states what God creates out of. Third, the most frequently named products of creation are humans or man. So this is where sometimes the word Adam gets confused. People get all bent out of shape, but it doesn't always mean simply um, men as gender, but as humanity as a whole. And there's another word, Adama, which also has the same meaning as air. It's land, ground, earth, and then the word dam, which is blood. So, and this is man, or it could be humanity, or it can also be a personal name. It just depends on personal noun, depends on usage. And then these three words play off each other. The Adam was taken from the Adama, so that's the word that actually is used. And then the Dam is what brings life into the body. That God did create the world out of nothing is certainly implied by other Old Testament passages which speak of his creating everything by his word and his existence before the world. Psalm 148:5 you can look at, Proverbs 8:22 through 27. And I think that's all I have to say as far as his commentary. And let's just look at our verse again, see if I missed anything that I want to say. So that's it. So that is the first verse. Like I said, there's way more to it than what we have discussed here, but I think that's enough. So I hope you enjoy this, get something out of it, and Shabbat Shalom. Bye bye.